Good evening and welcome to Fear Nor Favor. And before I get into my material for this evening, I would like to say a special happy birthday to my son, Anish Noel, wishing him a happy 18th birthday. And as he transitions into the realms of adulthood, I want to wish him well. I sent him message via my status post and I indicated to him, to my son Anish Noel, who is starting a new chapter of his life. This is now the adult stage of your life where you would have to heighten your awareness of life's activities and be laser focused at all times. Think and rethink before making any utterances or taking any action. Reduce the diameter of your social circle and deliberately surround yourself with positive and law abiding people. Never hesitate to dissociate yourself from family members and friends who have the potential to derail your life's efforts. Put God first in everything that you do. I love you. I know that He's listening. I know that He might have read this already. I know that His sisters are listening. I know that His brothers are listening. So, therefore, had they not seen this, then they would have heard it. On fear nor favor. Enjoy what is left of your birthday, son, and we'll continue to celebrate over the weekend. Now, we had some calypso bacchanals going on. You had 2 days of illumination. Saturday was the first, and Sunday was the second. Then eventually, you had 16 calypsonians being selected. 16 calypsonians being selected to move on to the semifinals. The semifinals will be held on December 14th, and then the finals would be on December 29th. So there were 14 calypsonians selected. And of course, not everybody is happy. Some are satisfied, others are not so satisfied. I, for one, did my individual adjudication, but I did it from home. However, sometimes it is better to be in person if you're going to try and adjudicate fairly to others. The 16 Calypsonians selected to go through to the semifinals on the 14th of this month. I think the 14th might well be next week, Thursday, because today is 7. 7 and 7 is 14. And we have from the bottom up with respect to points, you had Nutsi with 365 points. Calypso Craig or King Craig with 370 points. Mighty Freddy with 371 points. Baker 373 points. Isosop 373 points. Invincible 376 points. The Mighty Watch Your Back 376 points. Queen Singing Jackie 379 points. Green Tea 382 points. Lady Composer 401 points. Mighty Pat 401 points. Lady Diva 402 points. King Socrates 412 points. Mighty Godfrey coming in third position, 413 points. Hollywood 414 points. And Kamal 444 points. So from the point standing, Kamal would have topped the elimination process going into the semifinals. They sang one song. Hollywood was second. Godfrey was third. King Socrates was fourth. Lady Diva fifth. Mighty Pat sixth. Lady Composer 7, Green Tea 8, Queen Singing Jackie 9, The Mighty Watch Your Back 10, Invincible 11, Southsap 12, Baker 13, Mighty Freddy 14, Craig 15, and Nutsi out of Nevis number 16. Not everybody would be happy. Some are very happy with the results, some accepted the results, others still carrying on the conversations as to why Lady Empress out of Nevis was not selected in the 16 to go through to the semifinals. I also think that she did well. Everybody tried their best. In my opinion, though, I felt as though she ought to have been in there. But that is my perspective, my adjudication. And also, I think Ijo had one of the better songs. He did perform, he presented the song lovely. I don't know, I know that he had a start that he was not satisfied with. But speaking to the head judge, he would have indicated to me that he suggested to the other judges, judge him from when he started over. And I really can't imagine that they would have done that. I don't know if there's any way to verify that all judges did just that. Because Ijo had clarity, lyrics good, voice projection lovely, music was nice, performance lovely, and because you had 40 points for lyrics, 30 points for music, and 30 points for performance. And I think in all three headed categories, he would have done well. And I really want to encourage him. I was rather impressed with his delivery, the lyrical content of his song, the music, the melody, the way he presented the song. Yeah, and I want to wish him well for next year. But I also think that when they are selecting persons to be guest artists, that Ijo could be selected and Lady Empress. I think that the crowd would rather be happy to see them appearing on stage. Yes, they're not in the 16, but they would want many hats. Because many persons really showed appreciation for their songs. The problem we have sometimes is that for elimination, and I know some Calypsonians that are going around looking for a second song, and that is rather unfortunate. Some people seem as if they did not have the confidence that they would make it through to the semifinals. So therefore, they came out with just one song. And now scrabbling to get a second song, not arranged, a second song composed. Then after the composition, they would have to go and get the musical arrangement, have the music arranged. That could take some time. And I think that throughout the years, we, the audience, because you have to pay for the semifinals, and if you have to pay for the semifinal, you're paying for two songs from each Calypsonian. And if that is not the case, you would have shortchanged the audience. They did not get their money's worth. But again, maybe it's lack of confidence. Maybe some persons had their two songs, but did not get a chance to get the second one arranged. Maybe they had the songs arranged, but they did not get the time to go and practice with the band. Because sometimes practicing with these bands could be a headache. I know persons who would have changed bands. I know persons who would have stopped singing calypsos and also stopped competing. They might go by a studio, put down a song, put it over the air, but they would have lost the appetite to compete simply because they cannot get sufficient practice to make them comfortable singing with the band. Very unfortunate. But we are hoping that the 14th, they have a whole week. 16 Calypsonians, they have a whole week to get practice. Those who have not gotten a second song, you hope that they will get it and they will put in some good hours to get the lines together and be in unison with the musical accompaniment. We have persons who would have put out two songs. I think that Singing Jackie, my Calypsonian, she has out two songs. I'm not certain, but I assume that Sako would have his two songs. I don't know who else off the bat would have two songs, but it's a competition. And maybe we have to start thinking about maybe having a one song competition. So instead of having 16 Calypsonians singing two songs, which would be 32 calypsos, we could have about 20 Calypsonians singing one song each, and then you select 10 Calypsonians to come up against the reigning monarch and sing one song. I think that some persons would produce better material. You have a situation where Persons might sound real nice in the first round, and then the second round is horrible because there is no continuation. A song is a song. When you would have already adjudicated the first song in the first round, you can't say, well, he sounded real lovely in the first round, so let us doctor some points for him. No, one song is one song. When it is finished in the first round, the second round would be judged differently. And I'll be honest, throughout the years, the past several years, we have not been having the best of our Calypsonians. And I think that they're in need of some help with respect to composing songs. And I think that the one song competition would improve the standard of the show itself. Because when you don't listen 32 songs, you have to average. Somebody first song they might get 80 points, another song they get 35, 40, 45. So if you put 40, 80, that's 120. An average, that was a 60%, 60-point song. Whereas if you had the one song and they put that one song forward, then that person would be up there in the 80s. So we should not say, even if you pick 7 along with the Monarch, that'll be 16 songs. 16 songs for the finals. Now, if you reduce it to 10 and the Monarch, that's 11 songs, but 11 good quality songs. It's not easy composing calypso at times. Sometimes even the melody, even to get a different melody. Oh yes, Godfrey also has 2 songs. The Foot Soldiers and also Something for Something. So he has his 2 songs to go. Sometimes putting lyrics together could be difficult. Some persons might not have a good verbal dexterity, so using different words and everything else, getting your theme and developing the theme and producing the overall song might be a challenge for some people. So if they could put all of that effort into one song, I think the standard can be uplifted. And we got to really admit, the standard being down for several years now. Several years. Because people are struggling. Some people do not wish to ask for help. But you could see that that is a limiting factor. Sometimes humility. Ask somebody to help you with a composition. You could even have 2 persons. One who would have composed one song, and another person compose a different song. Because it takes some of the stress off of one writer to produce 2 different songs, well constructed. So when you explicate it, you could get something distinctly different from the 2 songs. But we are hoping that things would be okay come the 14th. I don't know if it is my understanding that they might have formed an all-star band for the semifinals. And that too could be a little bit problematic. I mean, a musician is a musician. I don't know if we still have persons who play by ear instead of reading the musical sheet or the music sheet. And it depends on the composition of the all-star band. If, for example, you had 6 from one band and 3 from the next band, or 7 from one band, 4 from the next band. Maybe the band with 7, the Calypsonians who practice with that band might have an advantage over the others who did not practice with the band with the most representative. So they could be at a disadvantage, but we know that our musicians around here, they are flexible. They are professional as well. And regardless of what, once your song is well arranged, the professionalism will exude and you get proper musical accompaniment. Way back, he used to have Elimat with his band supporting him, and other person used to bring in a saxophonist, a trumpeter, and then people started to protest. If you have one band, that one band should play for all Calypsonians. There must be no special provision for any extra musician to accompany a particular Calypsonian. And the funny thing about that is Elimat used to play his keyboard. And when he's singing, he's not playing the keyboard, so somebody else would have had to play it. And I think at one time he used to have 2 keyboards. So when he goes out on stage, the other keyboardist would just play the appropriate parts. So we want to wish the semi-finalists well. The junior Calypsonians, my understanding is that they have 5 junior Calypsonians or super junior Calypsonians from the primary schools, and then you have the rest from the high schools and maybe even out of school, because I think that you could be of age to sing in the junior competition, but you might not be attending a particular school. But the only disappointment with the lead up to the Junior Calypso competition on Sunday over at the Marriott, I think it is that we have not heard on the radio stations songs from the competitors. And usually the turnout to the Junior Calypso show is poor. Sometimes you have some good talents, some good songs, just need tweaking here and there. And some people feed off of the crowd, the audience. So you could have a song that is not that strong, but then your presentation can go down well because the crowd is there and you want to perform. Family member, friends, just as long as you see a crowd out there, it is like a catalyst for you to perform well. But they have not put out any of the Junior Calypsonian song. And I would really like maybe the various radio stations, that is Sugar City, Min FM Freedom, to make a special appeal to the Carnival Committee to get the songs them, go by where they're practicing. They might not be 100% ready. I mean, today's Thursday. You might be surprised that 1 or 2 of them might not be sufficiently practiced so that they can be most comfortable. But at least they are reasonably comfortable and they're good to go. They could have been better to go, but they're good to go. Whatever recording you can get, persons in charge of the Carnival Committee, Shannon Harley, people like Monarch and those guys, let us see what we can do for the youngsters then. Some persons might not have made up their minds to go to the show, the competition on Sunday. But maybe after they would have heard a few songs, they would really take the family and go over and be a part of the environment, because I think it is free. It is free. So those of you who are family members, take them to Marriott. Support the youngsters. These are all upcoming Calypsonians. Who would have thought that certain young Calypsonians back then would have come out to master the art form and successfully contested past competition, senior competition. So we need that. So I'm appealing to those in authorities to see what they can do and work in unison to get some songs out there for people to hear. Sometimes the Calypsonians themselves, their song might be playing. Even senior Calypsonians, when the songs are playing, people calling them, telling them, you sung on, tune in, ZIZ, tune in, Sugar City, tune in, Freedom, tune in, Win FM. So they're excited about hearing their song played in the public's domain. Family members can gather around and show appreciation. You might have somebody critiquing and say, look, tweak that there, increase the tempo or slow it down. The verse is a bit too long, the song is a bit too short, 3 short verses. You could add on another verse and you structure it properly. Now, the judging aspect of it. You have a set of persons who were trained to judge calypsos. Every year they seem to bring in a consultant to assist in the training of calypso judges. Some persons go to almost every workshop. Some would have been to sufficient. Sometimes you don't get anything additional in a substantial way. So once you're trained, you're trained. The only thing you would have to do maybe is when you're home, you listen to calypso and you try to adjudicate it, explicate it, have it judged, and see how well your ears and whether you're informed to judge. Now you have quite a number of persons. I can recall sometimes the committee would say that you would have had to attend the calypso judging workshop in order to judge in a particular year's competition. And then on the night of the finals, you see some judges down there, they didn't even know that they were around. They haven't come around for a long time. But yet, despite the criteria they suggested for somebody to judge in the finals, they would have broken protocol and have people who I really don't know, friend, family this, family that. If you made up your mind that it is a policy that you have to attend the calypso workshops in a particular year in order to qualify to judge the calypso, why then when the finals come you breaking that policy, that protocol? It is really discouraging because you can't take it lightly. There are some judges who see it as a badge of honor to be adjudicating in the final or at the final show. You know, they call your name and judging this evening, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. And it's a little feather in the cap for those who are touched by that, give them a sense of therapy. But if you have a policy, you have a policy. And it is unfair for some people to go out and judge and are not given an opportunity to judge at a final show. You have some people who deliberately absent themselves from the eliminations and the semifinals in order to increase the probability of them judging in the final show. That is not nice. Because in recent times they used to have a policy that if you judge in the eliminations, you would not judge in the semifinals. And likewise, going forward, you would not judge in the finals had you judged in the elimination or the semifinals. But they were not consistent with that. And I feel if you have a pool of judges, whether they judge already at the elimination or the semifinals, you have about 20, 25 judges, put the names in a bag. And if Peter judged at the elimination and his name comes out to judge in the semifinals, so be it. People would feel better. But people would have even lost trust in the persons who sometimes appear on stage to pull out the names of judges. Sometimes at the final they're looking for 7 judges, 8 judges. And they're going up on stage and shaking up a bag. They're supposed 7 judges. They're shaking up a bag and they're pulling. They pull 1, they pull 2, they pull 3, they pull 4, they pull 5, they pull 6, they pull 7. And if you look in that bag after they pull the 7th person, not a next name is inside that bag. So technically they would have selected who they wanted the judges to be at the final show. And that would have discouraged many, many persons. It is alleged that at times in the past, persons were given instructions as to who to crown king or who to adjudicate to be king, maybe down to the first one up, second one up, but mainly for the king position. And that wasn't nice at all. Everybody must feel that the playing field is level and they don't mind getting beaten. But it must be fair. That time in the past, people think so. It was not level at all. You're going to select your judges. What criteria you use to select judges for the final show? You have some Calypsonians objecting to certain judges. Objecting to certain judges. I could remember there was a big hole up in the path. I think maybe it was Big Lies, Lord Cut. They were not in agreement with the panel of judges that they were going to use to judge a final show. And maybe those selections should Like I said, just come from a bag, man. Whoever end up being the adjudicator. And we got problem with judges too, you know. Not every judge is rounded enough to judge lyrics, performance, and musical arrangement. They have some with some naturally built-in biases. You have somebody who might be versed in musical arrangement, understand music fully well, but then they're not so hot in the lyrical content. So that's a built-in bias. You have persons who good at English, good at composition, could understand a good structured, a well-structured composition. But they don't have a clue about music. They can't even tell you what key somebody's singing in. They can't even tell you if the person's singing out a key. They don't have much appreciation for musical arrangement. So there are some persons who naturally lapse or have built-in biases. There have some persons some judges who don't have much of appreciation for presentation and performance, and as a result of that, they cannot fairly or reasonably adjudicate that performance, and that is 30 points. Then a judge must be able to put all these things together and adjudicate the calypso. Some people claim that they should have different judges judging lyrics, different judges judging music, and different judges judging performance. Maybe it sounds good. Might be better than to have a person lacking in two areas but still judging the calypso show. Now, sometimes the problem is some people do not deliver the calypso in a wholesome fashion. So we say that they bust, meaning that they encountered some difficulties in presenting their songs, and as a result, gaps and so were created. Sometimes a bus could be very technical. Maybe a band might play a false piece and cause the calypsonian to be thrown off. Now, is there a bus? Did the calypsonian bus? Some people might say no. It is the band that made the error. But there was a bus in the calypso. Maybe the calypsonian did not bus, but there was a bus in the calypso. The calypso is come from the calypsonian and the band accompaniment. So if the band messed up, there was a bus in the calypso. Should the calypsonian be penalized? No, the calypsonian must not be penalized, but the calypso must be penalized. When judges go to judge, they judge the presentation, the delivery, the overall presentation of a calypso. And if there were glitches, the points must reflect that something wasn't all that right. You have to do that. So sometimes you have big argument over whether the calypsonian should be punished for the mistake of the band. I don't know about the Calypsonian being punished. I know about the Calypso being marked down as a result of glitches in the overall presentation of the song. And at times, you have some persons who do not like the style of Calypso, the singing of a Calypsonian. It's like you have somebody singing for a lot of years. Everybody must be able to say, well, that is singing Jackie, that is Short Dust, that is Sparrow. What must they do? They have one, it's not like they have voices put up in a suitcase and they take out this one, take out that. You have to judge. It's not a queen show, you know. Yes, the Calypsonian would have to assist his song in getting over the message. But people should be able to go up there and sing in mask and be adjudicated fairly. But again, you have the voice that you cannot mask. So that could be problematic. Very, very, very problematic. I have judged with persons who, before the Calypsonian finished his or her song, they don't put down a score. You have judges who would be sitting beside you, peep on your score sheet, and change marks on the score sheet. I understand that they are now using tablets. And I still hold that sometimes judges collude to effectuate the desired outcome. Because if they are trying out the highest and the lowest score, and you have the guys them who colluding, says three of them, all of them could give a particular Calypsonian 95, 93, 94. Let's out the 95, okay, so we still have 93 and 94. And those same judges, very often they know who the competition is for the person who they are trying to give the crown to, doctor the crown to. So they look to provide low scores for that next individual. So if you think you give a man a 30, 35, another one give 34, but the 30 can get thrown out, but then you're left with 34, 35. So at times there were collusions to ensure that a particular outcome is achieved. And that ought not to be. Not to be. Some persons work out that it is better that they bring in overseas judges. But then that could be that could be problematic too. Because sometimes the facts in a calypso, they are local facts. And if you might have a character that somebody wrote a song about and presenting it. And if you're not from the local environment, you cannot fully appreciate the entire calypso. Maybe you might be able to connect a dot, you connect a dot. But one or two dots going to be missed out. And you might not get it 100% correct. So it is difficult at times. Maybe a mixture of foreign judges and local judges. might go down well, maybe our local judges, because it would be a cost. And something what they used to like to do is utilize returning nationals. But even those returning nationals never did attend any workshop for many, many years, but they still put them to adjudicate at the final show. We have to get serious about what we want to do. The trying out highs and lows could be a bit disrespectful, because if all the judges are trained properly, why would you want? And of course, if you're trained properly, you also have ethical values. So you judge and you judge properly. But like you said, some people might have built in biases. But let us assume everything is level and everybody judged, 7 judges. All of them have the same order, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But one judge scored very low. But when he put all his scores together for the Calypsonian, he get in the same ranking, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But his scores are low. All his scores will be thrown out because he's a low scorer or hard marker. So he might have given 50, 49, 48, 47, 46, 45, 44, and 43. Somebody might have given 100, 99, 98, 97, 96, 95, 94, 93. Same order. But the guy scored in a low fashion, so all his scores would go out. And likewise, those who scored extremely high like that, the scores will be thrown out as well, even though they have the same ranking as the other judges. And I think it is embarrassing and disrespectful for somebody to spend their time, sacrifice their time to go Calypso workshop, sacrifice their time with their family to go and judge a show, only for all the scores to be thrown out. Count everything, find the average. Count every single score. And whoever ends up with the highest score win. You cannot have trained people, scores being thrown out, and think that all is well. Some people do not like it. They express it to other persons. Some persons do not listen Calypso at all. But they might be the friend of somebody in the committee. And they want to quote unquote in the colloquial way being things. So they are selected to be a judge on the final show. These things happened in the past. Because a friend fighting to be in the limelight. And they come in and don't understand a thing about what's going on. They haven't listened to Calypso for the entire year. But somebody asks them to appear in the spotlight and help them adjudicate the Calypsonians. We have to come better than that. And I agree after every show, but there are times when you just had a clear winner and 99% of the persons were in agreement with the final decision. But there were many times when you still had controversies. Many times. And I usually explain to people that you don't have to miss out a line, you don't have to come in the wrong time. You could bust in a calypso without having a gap in your presentation. If somebody is singing about Brian Lara, Michael Jordan, and Usain Bolt, cricket, basketball, track and field, and you say that you sing a verse about Brian Lara, and you say that he has the world record in the 200 and the 100 meters. Well, partner, yes, the calypso is yours, and I agree. And people like to say you can't tell a man how to sing calypso. But if you're going to have him adjudicated, you got to contextualize it. Brian Lara ain't got any record in the 100 and 200. Brian Lara got a batting record. So if you mix up the choruses, you put Bolt chorus by Brian Lara and Brian Lara's chorus by maybe Michael Jordan, and you get everything mixed up. That's a bus in the calypso. That is a bus. You mix up the chorus because you have a verse about Brian Lara, then a chorus about Brian Lara. If you had one chorus that would go for all three persons, but you can't mix up verse and chorus. You got your verse and then you got the general chorus. You got another verse, general chorus. When you have a verse that is specific to a particular chorus, they must go hand in hand. They must go hand in hand unless you bust. And if you're singing a factual calypso based on facts, you cannot tell me that St. Kitts Nevis became independent in 1993. That is a bust as far as I'm concerned. Well, it should be a bust unless the person just doesn't know when St. Kitts Nevis became independent. You can claim or construct your calypso to be a factual calypso, and the facts just not equating to facts. That is a bust. Don't tell me the man sung and he sing it wherever he wants. That's not true. That is not true. And sometimes the highlight of a calypso, when you have the competition going on, you have people maybe pretending to extemporize a fourth verse, but most of the time the fourth verse was already constructed. Because once you pick your order and you're accustomed to what the person, you're familiar with what the person is going to say, you could attack them in a fourth verse. It gives the public the impression, well, boy, he extemporized that and he went down well done. But most of the time, fourth verses are constructed not on the night at the show when they came on. Somebody don't put it together. Mind, there are persons who could extemporize on the spur of the moment and respond to certain things that people would have said. But sometimes it is already planned. But then those who are just superficial in analyzing, they get the impression that it was done there on stage. However, there's a problem associated with fourth verses. We call them fourth verses. Sometimes it might be a fifth verse. But let us call it an extra verse then. Because some Calypsonians sing three songs and then they give you fourth. Some sing four and give you a final extra one, which is a fifth one. You have a theme and you're singing on. And your theme must go 1, 2, 3, 4. Developmentally, structurally. So number 1 verse would have to come first, and then followed by number 2, followed by number 3, followed by number 4. If you attempt to put on an extra verse and it is inconsistent with the theme of the overall song, I don't know, you're only one song you're singing. It sounds like as if you want to sing two songs, two different songs. One with 4 verses and one with 1, or one with 3 verses and one with 1. There must be consistency and cohesiveness, cohesion, coherentness in the development. And so, some people might applaud and say, well, yes, that was a nice fourth verse. But then the fourth verse is inconsistent with the structural development of the song. And then, what makes matters even worse sometimes is that a song would have in 3 verses, 1, 2, 3 in that order. And then the Calypsonian realizes that the song is a little bit too short. So he sings 1, 2, 3, and then he repeats the first verse. Well, I don't know how that is supposed to go. If you have a relay and you pass the baton to the second man and the third man, or even a relay with 4 persons, you pass to the first, the second, the third, the fourth. You finish. First and half, second. You got the starter, first and half, second and half, last and half. If you sing verse 1, then 2, then 3, and then you double back and put on 1, just for the sake of trying to extend the song, that can't happen. You would have taken your introductory paragraph and put it down at the end, when verse 3 should have been your concluding paragraph of the song, your concluding verse of the song. So the opening verse of the song, the second, and then the completing one. If you take the opening one and put it down after the completing one, what type of song is that? Calypsonians got to understand that they have to lose a lot of marks because of that. Some people might say, no, it's unfair to take off the marks, but suppose there was an instruction in the lab. Do 1, then 2, then 3. And you only mix up the order. You could blow up yourself and blow up the lab. I always judge like that. Had it been in a science lab, a chemistry lab, and the instructions are given that's supposed to be carried out sequentially, and any mishap, any mix-up would cause the lab to blow up, well, you got to lose a lot of marks for me. There's a logical development, sequential development, chronological development sometimes. Because somebody might sing what happened in 2022, 2023, and then the expectation for 2024. That's a chronological development, and it must be in order. You can't go 22, 23, and go back to 2018 or 2019. Cannot happen that way. So there's so many ways that we could not get it right. And then there are some judges who cannot resist the crowd response. But crowds respond for different things. So if you're going to depend on the responses of the crowd to put ink on paper, to put points on paper, you got to be careful. There's some people that look around. Yeah, but I move in the crowd, so therefore my points would have to reflect that. There was once a competition, and crowd response was a big part, or was a major part of the judging criteria. And a fella got booed by almost everybody. But that was crowd response. He win the crown. So when you talk about crowd response, is it favorable crowd response? Unfavorable crowd response? Because crowd response is crowd response. And that is a lesson. Factions of the crowd will respond differently. Because we used to get a lot of political songs. Labour people gone on one side of the stage and Pam people gone on the other side. And when a Pam Calypsonian is singing and dropping down his word on the Labour government or Labour people, he will get booed from the Labour supporters and vice versa. Vice versa. So we have to be mindful of crowd responses. I don't see crowd response and now under no subcategory of the major category headings on the criteria sheet. It is not there. But even though it is not there, it still impact the judges. Some of them scores go down what not supposed to go down. Of course, somebody might dance nicely. At least you could get a little point here and there using up the stage presentation. But suppose you can't even understand the person is saying when they start to sing. Rendition gone down. And I believe that the time period that they give judges to put the scores on the paper a little bit too short. Each category has various subcategories. And sometimes people are asking for lights, before you could fill out all the subcategories. So you just make a dash and you just put in something, not genuinely associated with what was presented. And that is problematic. I think that the judges are to be given sufficient time. I remember as they listen and as they see things spontaneously, it is after the song is completed, they now have to back check in their head and say, how he did that, how he did that. So it calls for some degree of concentration. And I would want to believe that a lot of judges do not complete the adjudication for a song before they move on to listen to a next one. No wonder some judges start scoring before the person completes the song. But should you put down any category at all or subcategory before somebody actually finishes? That things can change. There are many categories can change if you put down a score even a minute and a half before somebody finishes a calypso. Quite a number of subcategories can change. But you put on the man's score before you finish. And in his attempt to sing the last three lines of the last verse, he forget them. He busts. What are you going to do? And judging is an act. Many persons ask a question. When you are judging, could you give the first Calypsonian 100 points? Some people wonder if you could ever give a Calypsonian 100 points for a calypso. Many would like to say no. But if you're marking high and you gave the first Calypsonian 95 and the other Calypsonian after him, some other Calypsonian after him, comes 10 points better than him. Well, 95 and 10 is 105. The maximum you could give is 100. So therefore, you have robbed that Calypsonian 5 points. But you cannot give more than 100. You give 95 to the first Calypsonian. Another Calypsonian come later on. And in your method of assessment, 10 points better than that one. How are you going to give the Calypsonian 10 points more than 95 when the maximum is 100? So some people have to ask a simple question. What score should you put down on your paper for the first Calypsonian? What score? Because judging is relative. How much points I get relative to him or to her? If you give 3 persons 100 and one perform to a lesser extent than the other two, how would you know which one? You made a blunder. You have to be very careful when you are judging. You have to work out, look, when this first person comes out and they sound a particular way, so you give her 80. Mine, if you really mark it as if that is the only calypso that is going to be presented, you could go up in 95, 96, 97, 92, whatever you want to put down. But when you're going to have others coming for a comparative analysis or assessment, you gotta hit the first one with some room to wiggle here or there. Because then if you give 80 for the first Calypsonian, and I'm talking about somebody who marks high, and somebody comes 5 better, they get 85. Come 10 better, they get 90. 15 points better, they get 95. So you got the flexibility. And just likewise, if they come 10 points less, they get 70. 15 points less, they get 65. You got flexibility on both sides. But if you put yourself in a corner by putting the first score for the first Calypsonian too high, you're not saying that the Calypso doesn't worth 9 out of 10 or 90 out of 100. But you're saying that when I put this, this will be my reference point, and every single Calypsonian or Calypso presented would be judged on a comparative basis to my reference point. And this you end up in problems. It is not an easy task. We should always accept the decision of the judges as final. Even though it might ache your heart, even though you might hear gossip down the road after, even though you might be made aware of some collusion, something that is very unfortunate if it happens, but it is not easy. Sometimes they get intermission and persons go to the bar, indulge in the consumption of alcohol that happened in the past. Then they come back to adjudicate with their impaired faculties, giving people scores that they ought not to give. Seeing 20 people on the stage and there's only one person on the stage. If you're going to judge, you have to try to maintain your integrity. Do not do anything that would cloud your judgment, neither your ears nor your eyes. You got to be able to hear properly. Be well rested. Give it your best shot when you go out. Because sometimes the prize money is high and you don't want it to end up in the wrong person's hands. You don't want it to end up in the wrong person's hands. So commit yourself, exercise fairness, and may the better or the best presented combined calypsos be given the first place. There was a situation with Ijo in the eliminations, in that he started and he wasn't happy with the musical accompaniment. So he stopped and asked the band to start over. Somebody would say, well, that is a bus. But Calypsonians have the right, if the song is not going how it's supposed to go, especially start, then you can start over. And again, sometimes you have these rhythm boxes that just pitch off sometimes. Sometimes they're supposed to be programmed to know, well, Paul coming on stage and his tempo is 120, 85, 90. You don't have that. They're pre-programmed. So you know what pace is supposed to go at. That is one of the disadvantages. Well, I don't know if it's a disadvantage. Because sometimes you might start a song. Spare them in concert. They start a song, but the drummers, you have drummers. So when they jump in and they realize that you want to go at maybe half the tempo that you had before, they do just that. With the rhythm box, sometimes it's not so easy, but I don't even know if they could go and adjust the tempo of the rhythm box. When somebody doesn't sing a verse and a chorus or two verses or three verses. Sometimes you just need to take it down low, 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 low. Another issue that they usually encounter at the Calypso shows is that you have a control board, if you want to call it that. You have monitors on stage. So Calypsonian would have to come out convinced out of way of going across the stage and saying certain things. I guess that technique was to test the areas. Because sometimes on the stage you have dead areas where you can't hear yourself. But they usually should have monitors that are doing that nicely so you can move along the width of the stage and hear yourself properly. Worst thing you could do is be on a stage singing a calypso and you can hear yourself. Sometimes the band is playing much louder than the mic that the calypsonian is using. And as a result of that, those guys who control in the board, they have to understand it is not one size fit all. You just cannot set it for Susan and because she's the first guy and then just disappear. You got to monitor, monitor, monitor. And to me too, when the calypsonian is performing, you want to singing, you have to hear everything that calypsonian is saying. So the band should be low. When they go to the musical part now, without the calypsonian singing, just for simplicity, to me they could bring up the volume on the band, and when the person starts to sing again, they drop the volume of the band and you hear the voice of the calypsonian being projected with clarity. Some people controlling, you can't even talk to them, they want to behave a kind of way. Sometimes the band playing too loud. Somebody should be talking to the judges. Can you hear what the person is saying? And you should be able to give some kind of signal for them to lower it if you can't hear the calypsonian. But some people get upset when you try to tell them that they have to make an adjustment. You can't be angry. The judges, they ought to be hearing what the calypsonian is singing. It is not like a brassarama where you just want to hear the band and you cannot hear the calypsonian properly. And if it's one thing you want to make sure as a calypsonian is that the judges them hearing you. You got to make sure that they're hearing you. Don't mind the crowd in the back. Wherever the judges them be, you would know. If the judges them right up front. But would that be fair though? Let us suppose the judges them sat up front and the calypsonians singing. You have over in the stadium, you have people way back, seated. But the judges where they are seated, they could hear. Is it fair for the judges them to hear the calypsonians? And the people who paid the monies to go in could hardly hear them. I cannot hear them properly due to the decibel that is reaching them, the fading decibel that is reaching them. So should it be an equilibrium situation where both the judges and the audience could hear with clarity what the person is saying? Because that's what you paid your money for. At the same time, the judges are going to have you adjudicated. But you must not just let the judges them hear you. The audience in the back got to hear you too. So maybe putting the judges in the back would be a good thing. Because then everybody should be able to hear, because judges in the back and the hearing, I mean that the people in front of the judges, between the stage and the judges, would be able to hear. But when you put them up front, sometimes you might have a hostie, a calypsonian who is host, and they're struggling. I think that happened one year to Ava. It happened to Sakura. It happened to Ayatollah. God bless his soul. You're struggling to get words out because you're horsey. Should you say, well, we're going to punish you because even though the judges them here in the up front, the audience couldn't hear you? Yeah, those are questions that persons usually would ask. Let us take a break and come back. Ready? Welcome back to Fear in Our Favor. I listened a bit to the budget debate over on Nevis, and there are some areas where they are attempting to generate revenue, and I think that persons might want, Nigerians might want to take their time and we listen. Go on your computer, put it back up, listen to it carefully, that you become au fait with what was said, and also that you become au courant. You have to familiarize yourself with what's going on in your local environment. I heard about for example, the mammogram going to be free. So encouraging young people, females, to go as early as possible, make sure they get themselves checked out. But there was a little note at the end saying that come the 1st January, persons would have to pay. So you have to make sure you understand. Don't let Christmas, then December go past you, and then your intention was to get a free mammogram and you go up to the hospital the 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th, 5th of January. You got to remember you got to come up with your funds to do that. But there's one aspect of a particular project that I'm concerned about, the geothermal project. It is quite an expensive undertaking, millions of dollars. And it would appear as if the money would not be readily available in one lump sum. To say well, we move and we move, we do phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. It would not be available like that, that you consecutively and in a timely manner perform the different phases. It would appear as though that foreign investment would be coupled with other areas of revenue in order to get geothermal started and ready to deliver to the people of Newrish at least. Later on, you could get St. Kitts involved and the neighboring islands. But it is a lot of money. And even though we went to Parliament and we did certain things to show our support and embrace that geothermal project, the monies wouldn't come that easily, because even though there is a willingness by the federal government to try as much as possible, a few things would have to be put on hold and be sacrificed to give the geothermal project a little bit more impetus. Then a decision would have to be made. Are we willing to sacrifice X, Y, Z, and to what extent? If not, and we are going to wait on foreign investors to come and provide with some venture capital, and progressively thereafter a sufficient quantity of monies to do the entire project. Or how far would you take it? How far would you take it? Halfway? And if you take it halfway, how long would it be before the second half resumes? How long? Yes, the project sounds nice and it can be very beneficial and reduce electricity charges that we have, and it's considerably high around here. And many persons are facing high electricity bills. And it might be within the interest of the entire Federation to try to get it up and running expeditiously. But like I said, some sacrifices would have to be made. What would be sacrificed? And don't forget that there's always some bad blood between Kittitians and Nivisions, especially in the political arena, and something that goes over to the social settings. Some criticians might work out why put so much of the federal money into the geothermal project and ignore some potential projects that we have down here. Desalination, solar, wind. What are going to happen to them if a chunk of the money is placed into the geothermal project? You see, sometimes when people negotiating, when everybody's smiling is okay. But when other smiles start to get dark, be less bright, that is where the complexities and the cloudiness would come in. How much safeguard must be taken? Would contracts be signed? Would the geothermal project be a project of the federal government? There's some serious questions. Or is it a project of the NIA? Of course, Newrish is part of the Federation. Federal spending would be done on the geothermal project. I think that criticians and divisions alike would like to have a firm understanding as to whether the geothermal project eventually would benefit persons in the entire federation and beyond. But with the expenses to be incurred, who has ownership of the geothermal project? Is it the Newrish Island administration solely? Is it the federal government? Is it a combined partnership? What really is the clarity that needs to be enunciated? It is a way to articulate, but you have to enunciate before you articulate, and people must be comfortable. Because let us suppose it is owned by the Newrish Island administration. There are some criticians who would not feel comfortable that monies would be directed to that project while sacrifices would have to be made over on St. Kitts. It's a very ticklish situation. Very, very, very ticklish. And there's need for some more explanation, clarity of thoughts, and be upfront with the Kitty divisions. We have a Basia High School to build back. We have a prison to invest in. Because 1840 would have served its time. Its time would have been served tremendously. The main building, before they put on the other additional stuff there, you could actually slap the wall and you see powder coming out in some areas. God forbid an earthquake comes of a particular magnitude. That section of the prison could just cave in on the inmates and them. I don't know if they have any disaster plan or anything like that. But when earthquake comes, if the building is amorphous, weak in structure, it could cave in on people. People were placed at the prison for safe keeping. In every sense of the word, they were placed there for safe keeping. So why the hesitation to build a new prison? If you feel like it should be downscaled and reduce the associated cost, then do that. Do that. Because, like I said, God forbid an earthquake come cave in on people. And then the compound is filled with a lot of septic tanks. A lot. It would have outgrown the capacity to accommodate sewage. And I think that should be an ample enough reason for them to expedite the construction of the new prison. Because what you have sometimes is the hydrogen sulfide off of the sewage. Because remember, the sewage would produce bacteria. And bacteria multiply exponentially. And when they multiply, they produce a gas called hydrogen sulfide. Hydrogen sulfide could cause injury to individuals. Matter of fact, if you inhale too much of it, then you could pass out. And as a result of that, that in itself should give some ideas, the promptitude that should be put into it, the reconstruction or the construction of a new facility. Come on, we don't know if the hydrogen sulfide gas is creating problems for inmates. And when the gas comes off, it carries a stench, and of course some bacteria might be associated with it, and persons will have to inhale that. Persons might have to inhale that. So they need to really address that problem. They have a section of the prison of Nevis, but the majority of the inmates are housed at 1840. And regardless of what was going on and the misunderstanding and misrepresentation and suspicion of corruption or whatever, we got to get it right and straighten it out and get a better home for those inmates. Psychologically, it could be damaging for them to remain there. You get a new compound, all of a sudden that can be therapeutic for them. Yes, their liberty has been taken away, but you could have persons being better individuals above their shoulders if the environment is changed. So I don't know how much more of a sacrifice or compromise would have to be made with respect to the putting off. Some people might say, well, go for the geothermal. Inmates them come last. Yes, you go for the geothermal. The inmates them come last. And then they develop issues above their shoulders. All the geothermal we have and the cheaper energy would not be able to compensate for the havoc that can reach and be a part of our society by persons' minds who would have been derailed. Some people got mental issues and do things that as a result of that they end up in prison. And the hospital will tell you, well, up there is not any prison, hold them down there. The prison will tell you, well, we don't have the expertise to care for them down there. But once they're up the hospital, prison officer will accompany them. So sometimes there's a little toss up, what should we do with this individual? We can't control him at the hospital. So should you institutionalize him at the hospital or put him in the prison? So yes, some people have mental issues. They do things that they ought not to do. They end up in prison rather than institutionalized at the psychiatric ward. And then you have those who are incarcerated, who would lose their minds, become mentally ill whilst incarcerated. So those who go in are already mentally ill. Those who develop psychological and psychiatric issues whilst incarcerated. So what is the ideal thing to do? Man, I'm appealing to those in authority to have the prison constructed. Whatever scale, whatever magnitude you want to put it to. And people are learning. It's not like the prison are in 200 and something people. The numbers are down considerably. Yes, things might happen. I think what we need, so more than a prison, is a major rehabilitation center or compound. A major rehabilitation compound. Because I'll be honest, this marijuana thing, yes, economics good, but with the economics and the growing, make it more plentiful, and more people gonna indulge. We have a higher rate of marijuana-induced psychosis. People would do things. And it's not only marijuana that would create persons who would want rehabilitation. You have persons who have economic hardship. You have persons who have insecurity with respect to husbands or wives. You have persons who have psychological issues with respect to their jobs. Family, death. There's always a need for counseling, therapy, a rehabilitation compound. So those things would have to be put in place. And we cannot wait until people get out of control. We got to plan ahead. Definitely we would have more persons impacted above their shoulders in years to come. And they must be well accommodated. They must be cared for. They must be cared for. But the psychiatric ward might not be able to hold too many persons, but with the usage of marijuana, alcohol, family issues, disappointment in studies, the numbers will just go up. And we need a safe home for these people. Even the daycare treatment for mentally ill people, that compound even need to be bigger. You have to maybe make adjustments that 2 or 3 of them might be able to stay over. because the family can't really care for them. As much as you have mental care clinic at the health centers, not everybody is attending who's supposed to attend. And then the homes cannot manage them. Things will spiral out of control. We have to be proactive and prevent that from happening. Within the next 5 years, we have persons who would really be in need of some good counseling. We have imported inflation. People screaming for a double in December. And I don't know who the advisors them be, but I could tell them they would better err on the side of caution and make the sacrifice and give the double salary, because the ramification you could have by not doing it. I mean, there's so many benefits. People spend more. Business places would hire a few children over the Christmas vacation or hire some new permanent staff. You collect more from the sales tax. Stimuli would be afforded to our economy. We have to work on that. Even if some persons were to bank collectively, they can come up to such an amount that they could afford people to get loans, a $5,000 loan, a $10,000 loan. Because out of the extra that persons got, they put aside an amount as cushion. And you know how the banks operate, they lend out money to make money. So more money will be in the bank to facilitate loans. The opposite side of this now is that persons have expectations for the Christmas season, Christmas and Carnival season. Some people need costumes. Some people need ham on the table, turkey on the table, sorrel on the table, ginger beer on the table, stuffed chicken, stuffed baked chicken on the table. But these things ain't gonna drop out the sky. So it's better to have a smiling society than got people with bitter faces during the carnival season. These things they lead to a lot of things home, you know. Because if you have the money to buy, you could only afford one cake, for example. You cut it, somebody go and take another cut, a bigger cut. Confusion in the family, domestic violence. Whereas if you were able to buy 4 cakes, a little extra slice wouldn't do you anything. But when you have to sacrifice one cake and you cut it and you wrap it up in the tinfoil paper and you try to put it in the fridge to preserve it, and somebody goes in have it unwrapped and all sort of stuff. You got your sorrel in the fridge, but you don't have sufficient. Somebody sneaks in the fridge, drink out some water in the bottle, fill it back up, and you realize that the quality of your sorrel going down and down, and then that could lead to confusion in the house. Afford people that flexibility to avoid confusion in the homes, especially when scarce possessions would have to be sneaked out or sneaked off and create some domestic confusion. Already our police force is stretched to the extent where the PM would have indicated that no vacation. Some people might feel that was not the best possible decision because you have something called fit for duty assessment. If somebody's vacation was due in December, due to the fact that nobody can go before Carnival and Christmas are completed, that person might be under stress. The person might buckle under stress. So sometimes we got to take each case on its own merit and see who ought to go on vacation and need some therapy from having their vacation. Some people might have had medical appointments that they put in December. Some person might have had flights already organized to visit the U.S. Embassy to get things in place for the children who are trying to start school in January. Check in with a green card. So each case, I think, should be taken on its own merit, and even 3, 4, 5 persons leave the Federation. They're not leaving for 10 weeks, they're leaving for maybe a week to get their things in order, and then they come back. We have sufficient soldiers up there to assist the police. They usually get the privilege and the function as police officers for a period of time. The Governor General will do that to ensure that they can carry out those functions. So maybe we have to look closer at fit for duty assessment with some of our law enforcement officers and defense force workers. You don't want to angry people. You don't want angry people as a result of being angered, operating weapons. You don't know what can happen. Try to work with everybody. And by the way, if people behave themselves, the law enforcement would not be so overwhelmed. Behave. We work with cause good behavior. The catalyst is a double salary. And with that, we have completed our session for tonight, and we're looking forward to good news from our compassionate PM come the budget presentation. Is it next week, Wednesday? I don't know precisely what time, but I think it could be somewhere around there, even before. Because next week, Thursday, is Spede, and I think that people want the relevant and pertinent information before the VAT reduction days. Enjoy what is left of the rest of Thursday, and be kind to everyone that you meet. Goodbye.